Good afternoon. I'm Andy, and welcome to this week's Team Kentucky Update. This week, I'm going to have a lot of help because I'm losing my voice. So I'm going to start out with a couple of updates, turn it over to Colonel Slinker to walk us through the next pieces. He will hand off to Eric Friedlander, and then the First Lady will back clean up and bring us home. So Kentucky is becoming an economic powerhouse, and of course, manufacturing is essential to helping helping us reach our full potential. With more than 5,000 manufacturers in the state, employing approximately 250,000 Kentuckians, we want to ensure that Kentucky companies stay more connected and are more competitive than ever before. That's why on Monday we announced the new Supply Kentucky initiative with the goal to boost job growth, reduce operational costs, and connect as many Kentucky companies to other Kentucky companies to meet their supply chain needs. That makes the supply chain more reliable. It reduces transportation costs. It is a win-win both for the companies and for the Commonwealth. Supply Kentucky will also coordinate marketing efforts, provide resources related to workforce, and connect Kentucky companies to suppliers throughout the country. We kicked off this initiative with a partnership between the Cabinet for Economic Development and the Kentucky Association of Manufacturers to launch an online tool called Connects Kentucky. That's a new statewide online platform that is free for Kentucky companies that connects them to other Kentucky companies and lets them search based on what they need. There'll be more than 140,000 manufacturers locally and nationally that can be searched based on qualifications, equipment, certification, processes, capabilities, U.S. Small Business Administration designations, and other criteria. The platform connects Kentucky manufacturers so they can align their needs with suppliers that are as close to them as possible. Also lets them discover new contract opportunities, post and receive RFPs, and build connections that will result in long-term partnerships. In many ways, this is both ensuring the competitiveness of our manufacturing sector. That's 12.5% of our workforce compared to 8% nationally. But it's also us not resting on the economic success we've had coming off the best 2 years in our history, but knowing that we've got to stay in the forefront. We've got to continue to innovate and provide new tools to our businesses. That's exactly what we're doing. Next, I want to highlight some exciting news regarding our state's site development initiatives. Yesterday, we announced that up to $34 million in state funds are one step closer to being distributed to develop land and buildings in local communities to support new, good-paying jobs and economic growth across Kentucky. In many ways, this is looking at how we landed that Ford project in Glendale. It took decades of development, the state and the local government, building up that site, ensuring we had ownership of all of it, working on roads, interstate, rail, and the rest. This product initiative tries to help every county have their version of Glendale, to take their economic development sites they have now and to improve them in important ways and or grow the sites that they have. So 54 site development projects are requesting these funds. 54 are moving forward in the initial round. They're now moving on to the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority, which will give them final approval. This is exciting first round of what is ultimately a $100 million pool. And again, it's going to make sure we are staying on the forefront with the very best build-ready sites. We will always look for ways to continue building Kentucky up and providing the best opportunities for sustained economic success. I want to thank all our organizations out there that are working so hard to ensure we don't rest on our laurels. We continue to work to improve. We are really excited that Site Selection ranked us number 2 in per capita economic development. We'd like to be number 1. And while we are in the top 10, even when you take the per capita away, we want to continue to work to improve because every one of those projects brings new jobs and new opportunities for our kids and a way to attract more people into this Commonwealth. And today we have some more great news about our state's booming economy. Today, the Office of State Budget Director is reporting that the February general fund receipts rose 11.4% compared to February of last year. Collections for the month for February are well over $1 billion. This is our best February ever in terms of revenue in the state. Strong growth in Kentucky wages, coupled with employment growth, have positioned our revenue collections to further grow. We will announce in my first term the 4 largest budget surpluses in this state's history, and we currently have the largest rainy day fund in our history. We're setting state revenue records every single month, which gave us that room to provide a tax cut for our families. This news comes on the heels of our announcement on Monday that last year we secured the lowest annual unemployment rate in the history of Kentucky. 2022's rate was 3.9%, a new record. It dropped a half a point from 2021 and was the lowest since the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics began reporting in 1976. This is another indication that Kentucky is an economic powerhouse creating good jobs for our people. The lowest unemployment rate in our state's history. We know more Kentuckians are chasing their dreams, and they can chase more of those dreams right here in the Commonwealth. I will now turn it over to Colonel Slinker, who's got a couple of topics, including updating us on power numbers, going through the latest updates on recovering from July's flooding as well. Colonel.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here with you. First, I'm going to start talking about what happened last week. So last Friday, March 3rd, Governor Beshear declared a state of an emergency. It was after meeting with the leadership from Kentucky Emergency Management, Kentucky National Guard, and the National Weather Service. The state of emergency was declared and the State Emergency Operations Center was activated. We called in all our state partners and to be prepared for whatever it brought us. To date, we have 69 counties and 27 cities that have declared states of emergencies. We are currently doing joint damage assessments with the state, local representatives, as well as the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, is being conducted. And a side note, simultaneously, they're also doing those joint preliminary damage assessments with FEMA on the mid-February flooding event that happened as well. So we're doing those simultaneously to document and verify the damage. These storms claimed 5 lives, and so can't go forward without mentioning that. Losing Kentucky loved ones, neighbors, and friends, no matter how much disaster experience or disaster response experience you have, it still impacts you the same way, and one Kentuckian loss is too many, and we'll always work to reduce that as much as we can. But we do have to say thanks to the National Weather Service and for all their weather predictions and constant updates they had. We had direct personal phone calls with them every 2 hours that the governor participated in as well, and that gave us the ability to be ahead of what was coming, and their predictions were spot on, and there's no doubt that it saved some lives. Governor Beshear and I visited Fremont, Kentucky, which is in McCracken County, where an EF2 tornado tore through the town, destroying many homes in its path. Not one Fremont resident lost their lives, and many of them stated to us it was because they were sheltering already from the warnings and from the communications that had came out. So it's a miracle, and you'll see in just a second in a video, it's a miracle that no one was seriously injured or worse. But being prepared and having a plan and getting those warnings out early is crucial. Now, if we'll have the video.
I want to thank the governor for coming here. I knew he'd be here. He's always here when we need him, and brings a team and resources statewide that's just so helpful.
But just because we don't live here don't mean we don't care about you, and that's why we're here to come and check the damage out and go back and see what kind of problems we can solve.
We've become familiar with this process, and we all come together as Team Kentucky whenever this transpires. And this is my area and my community, so it hits home even a little bit more, and that's what we're all here for, and we're here to help.
What happened in Fremont is a miracle. I mean, we had an EF2 tornado basically go down their main street, hit a number of houses. You look at the force and the violence at which it hit, and everybody is okay. No deaths, no serious injuries, no minor injuries. While a tornado came through here, God's hand was also at work protecting people.
This storm was unique because it was truly a Kentucky-wide incident. It started in Western Kentucky and moved across the state. And although not as impactful in Eastern Kentucky as West, but it was impactful there as well. So again, the number of counties that declared emergencies as well as the cities, would speak to that. We also had at least 24 tractor and trailers being blown over. Some of those on the highways that it impacted travel as well. To go along with some regional flooding, the EF2 tornado that was mentioned in McCracken County, and hurricane force winds. So it just a matter of hours, the entire state experienced all of those. By 8 p.m. on March the 3rd, Kentucky power outages peaked at more than 548,000. That's historical. By March 7th at 7 p.m., electric utility providers had restored over 500,000 customers statewide. That's 500,000 customers restored in 4 days. And in this historic event in Kentucky, 6 days later, we have 3,308 Kentucky customers without power. And I'd like to stop then and pause to just say thank you to the utility crews. They go out in dangerous times as well. And brave those dangers or extreme conditions. There were power lines and broken power poles all over the place. They got that safe and immediately started working, initiated their mutual aid agreements, and got more power crews in. And, again, if you're without power, completely understand, you want to get it on as soon as possible. But know that those utility crews were out working hard day and night, extended hours. So just want to say thanks to them. 15 water districts face challenges as a result of the storms. 6 of those facilities still have waiting some full power restorations, but they are operational at this time. As a result of that, some of those issues in those facilities, Kentucky Emergency Management partnered with Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Kentucky Rural Water Association, and the Energy Environment Cabinet to facilitate the transport of 44 pallets of water, 6 generators to the impacted facilities while working with utilities to restore their operations to get people water back on. The Kentucky Department of Health coordinated with Kentucky Emergency Management to provide 25 cylinders of oxygen to Scott and Woodford County, and we pre-staged 20 cylinders of oxygen in Pulaski County. That was the intent of almost every resource. If you thought you might need it, we deployed it. If you didn't, that was okay. That was good news. But we were trying to get that before it was needed. And additionally, Kentucky Emergency Management coordinated with our great partners with the Division of Forestry and the Kentucky National Guard, as always, to do cut and toss teams, because the utility workers and the first responders have to have access to those damaged areas. So those teams go out and cut trees out of the way and toss them over to the side of the road so we can have access. So they helped with getting our debris clean so we'd have access. We coordinated with local emergency managers to protect those participating in the Commonwealth Sheltering Program. As you know, we have hundreds of families in travel trailers, both Eastern and Western Kentucky. So we partnered with the county emergency management offices, located storm sheltering locations where if they weren't comfortable in their travel trailer, they had a place to go. And the day prior, on March 2nd, we went door to door, knocking on the door, provided those locations as well as the latest weather updates to ensure they were well aware of the weather coming. Jenny Wiley State Park Campground did lose power for a few days, but we made Jenny Wiley State Park Lodge available to those that in the campground that was in the travel trailers that lost. And 3 families spent a couple days at Jenny Wiley State Park while the power is being stored to Jenny Wiley Campground. As we continue to work through these ongoing efforts of the last week's storms, I just want to, remind everybody, if you have damage, document it well, report it to your local emergency management office. They'll do a damage assessment with Kentucky Emergency Management. And we do that for a couple reasons. One is just to get a holistic picture of how bad the storm was and what was the total impact, and also helps us build what we qualify for and what we would want to request when it comes to federal assistance. It gives us a good idea of that. Now, moving to Eastern Kentucky, flood update. We'll talk about sheltering. To date, Commonwealth Sheltering Program has 195 households in Eastern Kentucky that remain in 200 travel trailers. 191 trailers are occupied at 9 different commercial locations, while 9 trailers are on site at private locations. That is a reduction of sites. You may, through past updates, know that there was 10, but Crockett'sville, people were finding better options as there was some vacancies at the other site in Jackson. Some moved there as well. So we were facilitating, what was best for that family, but we were able to demobilize one of those sites and consolidate. 4 people are sheltering in one hotel and 18 people are sheltering at state parks. That's down from 360 people that originally sheltered there on September 1st. Going to FEMA assistance. FEMA has approved more than $101.5 million in individual assistance grants. That's an increase of over 1.1 million from last week. And that's kind of notable because, we're several months out from the disaster now, and we are still working with each individual daily and getting appeals accomplished or finding new people or new things that they had left off their original application. And we're getting that in and getting more assistance out on the street. In addition, 19 applicants have received the max grant of $37,900, bringing the total housing assistant max grants to $25.5 million for 673 survivors. If you need help, please call FEMA directly or visit a multi-agency resource center that you can be located at Emergency Management website. And remember, those are now on rotating schedules, so check and see what your times are in your county so you'll know when to arrive. Rebuilding homes in East Kentucky. Last week, we broke ground on the first home partially funded by the Team East Kentucky Flood Relief. Once completed, the home will bring a family back to Letcher County who was displaced after their home was destroyed by the floods. We're glad to give that opportunity to the Adams family to come back home to Letcher County. Additional families are ready to break ground on new homes in the next few weeks, also with partial funding from the Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund. On behalf of the governor, we'd like to thank our partners, Homes Incorporated Housing Development Alliance and the Federation of Appalachian Housing Enterprises for their tireless work in getting families into their new and safe homes. The governor has also recently announced that the state has secured land for 2 high ground communities, Olive Branch in Knott County, Skyview in Perry County, with additional properties actively being considered. The vision for these properties includes needed high ground homes, but also vibrant communities with modern amenities, mixed-use residential options, as well as a civic and community facility. To help bring this vision to life, the state has released a new request for a proposal for a program management expertise. The successful bidder will execute the design, engineering, construction process for items such as roads, bridges, utilities, and sidewalks, streetlights, and neighborhood layouts. Coordinate with the Commonwealth Team East Kentucky Flood Relief Fund, the Kentucky Housing Corporation, and nonprofit home builders to begin home construction. Proposals for the interested parties are due by 3:30 Eastern Time on March 24th, and there is also an opportunity for written questions. That deadline is noon tomorrow, Friday, March 10th. You can learn more about this RFP on the Finance and Administration Cabinet's EMARS website. Going to bridges. We continue to make progress restoring the public bridges that were damaged and destroyed by the flooding. 95 bridges were found to require total replacement, and 71 others required various degrees of repair. To date, 34 bridges have been replaced, one bridge superstructure has been replaced, and repairs have been completed on 22 other bridges. Contractors also installed 42 temporary crossings on county routes where loss of a bridge had left residents cut off from the highway. The temporary crossings consisted of culvert pipes covered with gravel and packed down. Again, temporary crossings at that time. The Team East Kentucky Flood Relief Fund update. As of March 8th, total donations are over 41,500. Donated amount over 13.1 million, and total disbursements were over 4.4 million. 440,000 in funeral expenses to families of the deceased. Over $4 million in $500 checks to survivors that were approved for any amount of FEMA assistance. Total commitments are $800,000 for building new homes and home repair. $600,000 to build new homes in partnership with Housing Development Alliance and Homes Incorporated. $200,000 for home repairs in partnership with Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky. Donations are still very much needed. You can donate at Team EKY floodrelieffund.ky.gov. That's 15,000 plus donors so far this week. So at that time, that includes the update on the current situation as well as the East Kentucky flooding. I'm going to turn the podium over to my good friend and great partner, Secretary Freelander.
Colonel Slinker, as always, thanks to your team for always rising to the occasion, having too many to rise to. But you all have always been great partners and make me proud to be a part of Team Kentucky. So thank you. Today, I want to talk about Medicaid and the end of the public health emergency. During the public health emergency, folks could apply for Medicaid and they would keep their Medicaid. They would always keep their Medicaid, basically, no matter what their eligibility status. So beginning in April, notices will start to go out to folks that they will need to recertify their Medicaid. And several things could have happened during that time. One of them could be somebody turned 65 and they're eligible for Medicare. I'm not quite there yet. Another thing could be that, as the governor said, our economy has been taken off and we've had so many jobs and living wage jobs that folks could have incomes that are higher than what they're allowed on Medicaid. They'll need to recertify with us. And if they have higher income, which we hope many of them do, they'll be able to get insurance either through their employer or going on our state-based exchange to connect. The other thing that may occur is they may still be eligible for Medicaid. And it may just be as simple as updating an address. So those folks, over the course of a year, will start to get a notification from Medicaid to begin with, 1 month before they need to renew. So folks need to start looking in their mail, and they'll see something from Medicaid, from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, and probably from their managed care organization. So keep a lookout for that. There are ways to sign up for that. I think there's a first and second slide. And so these are the ways that you can sign up. I always encourage people to go online if they can. It is the best way to get in touch with us and update that information. There are connectors that are available, and you can reach them also through these websites. And there are, if you're turning 65, a number that you can call that will help you navigate Medicare. That can be daunting, and there are folks who are there who are willing to help and ready to help you navigate that system. So I want to encourage folks to do that. There are maybe a couple of 100,000, 260,000 folks that may need to go through this process over the next year, and we want to make sure, because as the governor says, we believe healthcare is a right, that if you're eligible for Medicaid, if you're eligible for health care coverage, that you get it. And we want to make sure that we help you in every way we can to maintain or get health coverage. So that's a big deal. And it's a big deal for all of our healthcare providers. There's also, if you're a provider of services or you have just questions in general about what this, we call it the Medicaid unwind, looks like, and you have questions about it, you can go to this website that we have up that you can get your questions specifically about Medicaid and what we're doing with our unwinding program answered there. So I just wanted to give you those resources. Please know that that is an upcoming piece. We want to let folks know, and there are people around who will be able to help you navigate that system. You can always go into a DCBS office or call our phone lines, but like I say, I think the best way to do it, if you can, is to go online. I also want to talk about something else. A couple of our programs that we have going within the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. The first one I want to talk about is our Senior Meals Program. During the pandemic, well, Governor, when you came into office, there was a waiting list for seniors who needed meals, senior meals, and they couldn't get them. There are a couple of thousand folks on those waiting lists. What a horrible thing to say, I need assistance with my food security, and you can't get it. Well, during the pandemic, we received additional federal dollars, and with the help of the General Assembly, received additional state dollars to eliminate that waiting list. We still do not have a waiting list. If somebody or you know somebody who is going to be eligible for those senior meals, they can sign up. There is no waiting list. Check with your local, what's called area aging. Check with those groups in your local area to get signed up. Your community actions can do that as well. We served during the last 3 years over 9 million meals to seniors. That's an extra million meals per year. So I think we've made a tremendous impact on food security for our seniors. And I think that's what we all should want. There's another program that we started in this past year. It's called PACE, which means the Programs of All-Inclusive Services for the Elderly. And what that means is if you have a senior who is eligible for meets nursing facility level of care, we've been looking at trying to start this PACE program, Governor, for 30 years. And we were able to start this program this last year. And what that means is if you have a parent, if you know a senior and they want to age in place, they can. This PACE program provides services both in a center and some in home to keep folks in their homes. I don't know about you, but when I finally get over 65 and I might be ready for some services, I would want to get them in my home. And the thing about this program is it probably saves $1,000 per person per month as opposed to somebody going in a nursing facility. So it started. We're in 110 out of 120 counties. Folks are signing up. We have to get you through an eligibility process. But some folks are reporting they've got more people knocking on the door than they know how to handle. And that's exactly what we want to see. And so we've made great progress there. And I'm excited to start a program that we probably should have started, Governor, 20 years ago. And thank you for letting us and helping us do that. Something else I'd like to address is something else that you've accomplished in this administration. And when you came into office, we had about 10,000 children who were in out-of-home care, who were in foster care. Today, we're at about 8,400 children who are in foster care. And we believe, we hope that's because we've been able to invest in prevention. Again, partnership with the General Assembly, in partnership with a lot of folks across the state, we have implemented true prevention programs. And we think this is keeping kids out of our system. And I think that's important. The kids that we're seeing oftentimes are more severe and have more acute episodes. So trying to keep as many kids with their families is really important, and supporting those families. It's not just the kids, it's the families. And being able to wrap services around children and families, we believe has made a difference. And one other thing that I think the past couple of years have shown, even though we are not where we want to be, instead of being number 1 in child abuse and neglect, we went to number 5. This year we went to number 6. Still way too much. Still way too much. But finally heading in the right direction for our state. One other thing, I talked about the importance of going online and signing up for services. There is now a program that I want to highlight. It's called the Affordable Connectivity Program, and it's through the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, and it helps households that need help affording high-speed internet for work or school or healthcare or more with some financial assistance. This benefit can provide up to $30 a month towards internet for eligible households. Eligible households can also receive a one-time discount of up to $100 for a purchase of a laptop or a desktop or a tablet from participating providers, as long as they put up $10 to $50 in order to purchase that equipment. A household that's eligible has to be below 200% of poverty or participating in one of the following programs. Either they've received a Pell Grant in the last year, they're eligible for free and reduced school meals or free and reduced breakfast program. Many programs in the cabinet like SNAP and Medicaid and supplemental insurance and WIC, also federal housing assistance, or the Lifeline program or veterans pension or survivor benefits. To learn more, go to fcc.gov/ACP. All of these programs are important. I've said a lot of times, if there's one thing that we learned during COVID, it's that the health and welfare of each of us is based on the health and welfare of all of us. And Governor, you exemplify that. And your administration, I'm proud to serve because you exemplify that. And one other person who exemplifies that and has been really important across the Commonwealth in lifting up issues around children and making sure leading the biggest toy drives ever in the history of the Commonwealth is First Lady Brittany Beshear. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I'm really happy to be able to take over this part for Andy today because it's celebrating some really great Kentuckians who make a huge difference for our children. As parents of 2 public school kids, Andy and I recognize the important role every teacher and school employee plays. That includes our school social workers. These heroes support the social, emotional, physical, mental health, and home life needs of Kentucky students. Through this work, our school social workers are empowering these children and helping ensure personal and academic success. This work is essential for our children, schools, and families. Team Kentucky is committed to showing every single one of these leaders their value. This is why Andy and Jacqueline have built an education-first administration. Time and time again, they have stood up for our teachers and school staff, and that includes the recent Education First plan. This plan includes a 5% raise for all teachers and school staff, including school social workers, funding for social, emotional, and mental health services in school, another program that would support those we are honoring today, as well as universal pre-K to give every Kentucky child a head start at academic success. And this would help parents and caregivers balance work and life through childcare. This administration has also stood up for social workers as a whole, securing a much-needed pay raise and helping with hiring processes to ease caseloads. To our school social workers, we see your value. We know your value. We see the hard work you put in daily to make a difference. We are so grateful for your efforts and the positive impact you're making for kids across Kentucky. So with that, I get to steal one of Andy's lines. I'd like to invite you all to the proclamation table where Andy will proclaim March 5th through 11th as School Social Work Week in the Commonwealth. Oh, and you're the Team Kentucky All-Stars.
Come on up. I almost lost the proclamation. How you doing? Hey, thank you for what you do. Winnie appreciates it too. Hello. This look right? Okay. We all look up first. And then we make it official. You have it. You're welcome.
Thank you. And this is really 2022 school social worker.
Thank you, sir.
I know.
If you want me to,
Please, go for it.
yes.
How y'all doing? My name is Rudy Garcia. Like she was just saying, I don't know if y'all heard it. I'm the Kentucky School Social Worker of the Year. And I've been blessed for that position. I retired after 22 years in the military, jumped into social work. I've seen the travesties around the world. And I didn't want to see that within our country and within Kentucky. So that is why I got into social work after I retired to work. My first passion was to work with veterans, but the first time that I worked with a child, they stole my heart. And I've been working with them since then. I started out as a therapist, and now I'm a district school social worker for Hardin County Schools. Been doing it for about 11 years, working with them, bringing in resources, and trying to help them out. Like the governor and the first lady were saying, we need to get that foundation for the families. We need to get the foundation for the individual students in order to provide them the opportunity to be successful Kentucky citizens and American citizens. And we can do that by the economic growth that we're having. I live about 5 minutes from Glendale, so we're going to be getting a lot of jobs. ECTC is building a building next to the battery factory to teach our community what they're going to need in that Ford factory to be able to get better pay, get out of the situations that they're in. And thank you all for having us.
Thank you all. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. All right. Before we open it up to questions, I just re-mentioned a few things. Colonel Slinker, in his comments, announced the RFP that's out. This is really a project manager for these high ground communities. Going to take some skill and knowledge on developing a community, and we're going to bring in that help through that contract. Other thing I just mentioned again is the ACP program could save families $360 a year, which is a big deal in a time of inflation. And he read a whole group of other programs that if you qualify for, you will automatically qualify for this. So we want to make sure that gets out to each and every one of those families on any of those programs, because that means there's another $360 in savings. It also ensures that you are signed up for high-speed internet. With that, we have a number of journalists here with us today, and none on virtually. This might be a first since the start of COVID. We will start someone we're happy has returned, Karen Czar.
Thank you, Governor. Governor, could we have your response to the DOJ report that came out yesterday regarding the Louisville Metro Police Department and the Ontario case?
The findings by the Department of Justice are concerning, and they are going to require action. What we need is for everybody to be a part of that solution, and I think that is what we are seeing. Even in the responses from different groups that are involved, while some might have different nuance and some may dispute different parts, what I see at least by the end of each statement that's out there is people want to work towards a better day with better policing, with a commitment from all involved. And I tell you what, we ought to learn from anything that's out there. This is something that I'm going to ask the state police to review, though it's not about the state police, and figure out what we can do better, being proactive. Same with the Department of Criminal Justice training. My hope is that this can be a tool to where people can feel safe in their community, feel safe about those policing them, and can help our police departments all across Kentucky to do that much better. I do want to say to law enforcement, we need them and we appreciate them. We can do all this and get better and do it together. Tom Latek.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon to you. Do you anticipate having to go to the General Assembly for some funding to help out with the windstorm relief efforts?
The question is whether we think we will need help from the General Assembly on windstorm relief efforts. Not at the moment. So in many ways, while we lost 5 lives, and that's tragic, and it is, for those 5 families, that's tough. I will say, for a storm that was perhaps the 3rd most damaging in terms of utilities that we've ever seen, it's amazing we did not lose more people, which means people were weather aware, which is a really good thing. So to all of our news stations all across Kentucky, thank you, especially your meteorologists, for getting out that word and helping to keep us safe. What we now have to do is really the damage assessments. We believe once we have a sufficient amount of that, we will be able to get the federal disaster declaration. That'll mean 75% of the costs, of eligible costs, will come from the federal government. So that'll be the biggest tranche of assistance money. Now, what we have seen is that we push politics aside after natural disasters. So if we don't see the need in the session, but might afterwards, I have no concerns with our ability to be able to work together. If a special session was needed at the moment, I don't see that. Tessa Duvall.
Hi, Governor. Thank you. There are a couple of bills working their way through the legislature this session that relate to guns, firearms. One passed out of the Senate committee today, has already passed the full House, that would prevent local law enforcement from participating in federal gun bans. And there's another bill that's also advanced regarding carrying concealed weapons on college campuses. Do you have thoughts about those bills? If they've reached your desk, would you sign them? Would you veto them?
So these are two bills I think that are in some sense moving. I guess one is on concealed carry on college campuses. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, but especially when you look at K through 12 schools, I just do not think that is a place where people ought to carry firearms. I believe the answer is an SRO in every single school system trained to protect us from the worst of the worst. I do want to hear from our college campuses about this, about what some of their current rules are right now. On the other, which prohibits local law enforcement from enforcing federal law, that's been struck down every single time that it's come up. I'd just like us to spend our time on things that we know are constitutional and that can improve our lives, like economic development, expansion of healthcare. That one will be challenged by someone in court, and each and every time is struck down. Lee Searcy.
Yes, Governor. We spoke to you a few weeks ago regarding Kentucky State Police and the fact that less than 3% of the force is made up of sworn female troopers. You're familiar with the issue. Have you had any further discussions with the commissioner, executive command staff, and what specifically, a couple things, would you like to see change?
Yeah. So there is no question we do not have enough diversity within our Kentucky State Police in terms of women or minority troopers. That's why we created the office that is now in recruitment with very a specific mission, where, first of all, we need more troopers. We've been losing so many over the years, but that our troopers ought to look more like and better represent the Commonwealth that they serve. We have made some improvement, but not enough. But I know there is an emphasis and an effort there that we need to continue. Now, we always need to make sure that we have a culture that makes everyone feel valued, and one that can draw people in. So anytime that there are concerns that are raised there, we want to take them seriously. We're certainly watching court actions as they go through. And as courts find facts, which is what they do, that's what the courts are and juries are there for. We'll want to make sure we very carefully consider that too. Obviously, we've made some changes in state police leadership, and even some changes from when I started. I do believe there is a current commitment there, but that's one we've got to constantly see and push. I want the state police to be a welcome home to anyone who wants to be a trooper. Olivia?
Yeah, the House passed House Bill 319 yesterday, which is kind of their biggest teacher shortage bill. What are your thoughts on the bill, and how do you feel overall about how the legislature is addressing this?
Yeah, so our teacher shortage is a very serious concern. I know different ways that people measure it, but I look at how many teachers from a year ago left the profession before this year, and they are making predictions that that's going to increase for next year. This is a very significant concern, and I appreciate the bill going through and trying to do something. But listen, we are not going to make strides and advancements until we raise teacher pay. We are asking people to live in comparative poverty for doing something that we need them desperately to do. We are 44th in teacher pay. We're number 2 in per capita economic development. We're number 44 in teacher pay. We're going to have $2 billion more in revenue from this 2-year budget than we have expenses. We can more than afford this 5% across the board raise. And for legislators last year to give themselves an 8% raise, but only fund statewide public education enough to give a 3% raise is pretty wrong. The only way that we are going to start addressing the teacher shortage is to pay them better. And let me tell you, we see it bear out. We are seeing more applications for the Kentucky State Police, which we just talked about. And the reason? We significantly raised pay. We're doing better in corrections. The reason? We significantly raised pay. We're starting to see more applications for the Department of Juvenile Justice. Thank goodness. The reason? We raised pay. And when you look back at the other major action that has led to all these shortages, it was the elimination of pensions for new hires. So what you did, compensation is wages plus benefits. And we just took away the best benefit by far with a significant value, which means teacher compensation dropped precipitously and has never rebounded. We can't pay public sector wages and have private sector benefits, right? That it doesn't work that way. So listen, there's plenty of money. They've already opened the budget so many times, and I know are trying to claim that it hasn't happened. This really needs to move forward, and it shouldn't be viewed as a win or a loss for me. It should be viewed as a win and a necessary win for the Commonwealth. And let me just say, I said teachers a whole lot in that, but our vacancies through our school system are on so much more. We just had our social workers up here, and we need more of them in our schools. We need more counselors. We have so many needs that we are not filling with students that need it more than ever. I have a 12 and a 13-year-old. Middle school is hard, and they rely on teachers and folks throughout that school. I want them to have the very best, like I want every Kentuckian to. Let me make one last point. In many of these counties, the school system is the largest employer. So that means we're not paying Kentuckians enough in communities of each one of these representatives and senators. In other words, we're not providing the funding to their largest employer to remain competitive. You know, if we were looking at a private sector business, we'd have responded immediately to that. We need to do the same for our educators. Carolina.
Governor, bills to make school board elections and city council elections, they appear to be struggling in the legislature right now, but they're still there. Do you think these races should be partisan?
Oh, making school board elections and local elections partisan is just about the worst idea I've ever heard from this General Assembly. Aren't we all tired of partisanship? You know, it's seeped into our everyday lives, and I see more people pushing against it every day, which is a good thing. We need to stop worrying about who's a Democrat or who's a Republican and start worrying about how we work together to get things done. All this is going to do is make it harder for a city council to make decisions, or for a school board to just do what's best in the interest of the kids in their school. Some things need to not be partisan. Some things need, well, I wish nothing was, but some things need to not be political. So I am firmly and very much opposed to creating any more partisan elections. If anything, let's go the other way. I'd love to have a discussion about that. I doubt we'll have it for this next election, but I'd still be interested in having the discussion moving forward. Thank you to our school social workers. Congratulations on being Team Kentucky All-Stars, and we'll see you next week, hopefully with a better voice.